1, 2, 3, 4. Let this groove get you to move. It's alright, alright, alright. Let this groove set in your shoes. It's alright, alright, alright. Alright, let's get into it. Hi, welcome to the Be Here podcast, where we talk about how we can live more mindfully by living more musically. My name is Brian Royes, and this is where I share my journey with music and mindfulness. Welcome to another very exciting episode. I'm really glad you're here. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. You might notice something's a little bit new this time. For the first time ever on the Be Here podcast, we're doing a video episode. And this is like the start of something new, I guess. Hashtag High School Musical, hashtag Be Here podcast. And I'm really excited for like what's to come. I don't know, I just feel like it's at this stage in development where I've hit a stride. The next way to level up is to introduce a video component. So here we go. Let's go. This will be fun. I'm glad that you stuck around for season 1 and season 2, which have been on music and mindfulness as a whole. But the whole of this season has been on rhythm, exploring rhythm from the perspective of mindfulness. And today's episode is what makes a song groovy. This is a question that I've thought extensively about, and I feel like I kind of have an idea, and that's what I'm going to kind of share in this episode. And so if you're a new listener, thanks for being here. I hope you find this interesting and valuable, and you'll share it with a friend. So as is tradition on this podcast, what we're going to do just to begin and set the stage is we're going to pause and take 2 deep breaths together. And what I mean by this is just if you can stop whatever you're doing, great. Just bring your attention to like the physical sensation of where like the air enters your body and then leaves your body. It's just physical sensation right here. You're going to notice thoughts are going to show up in your mind. Just notice them as thoughts or like appearances in consciousness, and then let them go. Don't hold on. Don't try to change anything. And we're just going to breathe into it for, let's do 3 deep breaths this time. And in particular, this time I want you to focus on or notice the really minute pause between the in and the out breath. Just that split moment where like nothing is changing. Just like at the height, the vertex of the breath. I'm a math teacher, so that is relevant to me. Anyway, just pause what you're doing, take 3 deep breaths with me, and just notice that pause right in the middle. So let's go, breathe into it. I'm glad that you've chosen to be here. I really am glad that you've chosen to be here. This is really an exciting endeavor that I'm putting out into the world, and I'm hoping to connect with you guys who find these conversations interesting and valuable. So let's start the conversation. I've been doing this for a year now, and we're talking about mindfulness from the perspective of music. And I think this is just a gold mine of conversational value. And so today's episode, we're digging into what makes a song groovy. I don't know. I feel like as a musical listener, I'm attracted to songs that are particularly like groovy, and that's a hard term to define. I realize, because like it's subjective. Music is subjective. Like what makes a song groovy to one person might be different to what somebody else finds interesting or groovy somewhere else. This varies widely between and across cultures, so there is no one size fits all. That's my disclaimer going into this episode. But personally, I find that my influences have come from a lot of like jazz background. I love funk music. I don't really listen to much hip hop, but it's undeniable the hip hop influence that permeates like R&B culture, even pop culture in general. Growing up in Jamaica, you cannot avoid reggae and dancehall as a part of the conversation, because we're going to have a separate episode on like what makes reggae music so damn groovy. But those are kind of where my influences are coming from. And when I listen to music on my like Spotify playlists, I find that when I go and create my own playlists, I have one called like Groovy Baby, which I'll send to you if you're interested. What I notice in particular about all the songs I put on there is like a strong sense of interplay between the instruments. For me, what makes a song groovy is a strong sense of interplay between the instruments. And what I mean by that is, remember, in any song that you're listening to, you're going to have like a whole bunch of moving parts. You'll have the bass line. Almost every song has a bass line. It's like the foundation for music in a sense. You'll have on top of that some sorts of like chord, right? Whether that's a piano or a guitar. Maybe, all songs don't have to have a lead vocalist or like a lyrical line, but usually pop songs have like some sort of lead sound. And those are all, I guess, playing together around the beat. So like we've been exploring on season 2, the foundational element of any song is the rhythm. That's why there's a whole season on rhythm. The foundation for all music, in my opinion, is rhythm. And rhythm is basically how we break down time, how we break down sounds throughout time. And you know, the first thing that we have to set when thinking about, let's say, making a song is like, what is the tempo? What's the BPM of this song? And then within that rhythmic structure, the different instruments, be it the guitar or the piano or the voices or the synth or the bass line, they're all playing usually on that rhythm, and they're sort of sitting in what musicians like to call the pocket. And this is the first time that we're going to actually delve into this on an episode, even though we've mentioned it on many episodes before. But this idea called the pocket of a song, like, what is that? You might hear musicians talk about the pocket of a song. To me, the pocket of the song is what makes the song groovy. It's the relationship between all of the different instruments as they're playing in real time. If I were to turn on a metronome right now, and I guess I will eventually later in this episode, if I turn on a metronome, it's going to keep like a strict pulse. So let's say I play a pulse of like 95 BPM. I don't know, I just like 95. Hopefully you can hear that. Maybe a bit close to the mic. Right. When you're playing live, all of the instruments that are playing are trying to stay as closely and as accurately as they can to this sort of like absolute true BPM value. However, in real life, human beings, we're fallible. Like, we play to our own beat sometimes. And so every now and again, somebody may not be exactly on beat. And when you, I guess, scale this up by 2, 3, 5, 7 musicians or different instruments in a song, the grooviness comes from the relationship between all of those instruments playing around this internalized core rhythm of 95 BPM. And the pocket is sort of the space in between what the instruments are playing that makes it really groovy. So we've talked about in other episodes too, how in any composition of a song, you'll have sort of intentional space left inside the song, so that as the bass line does its thing over here, the bass line may pause for a second and then the trumpets may come in, or then you might hear like a splash of chords in the space left in between it. And that's kind of what I'm getting at when I'm talking about the pocket. The pocket being the space left in between the chords, in between the rhythm, in between the beats in the song. And if you can sort of lean into the pocket, lean into the space between the beats, that's where you'll find a song is particularly groovy. And I'm just gonna demonstrate. I'm gonna do a little freestyle demo here. So bear with me on this. I'm literally making this up off the top of my head. I'm gonna set my metronome for 95 BPM, and I'm gonna try and just like, I don't know, try and stick as close to 95 BPM as possible and just beatbox some sort of like drum rhythm over it. I'm not a beatboxer. Please don't come for me. But let's try anyway. So let me internalize this 95. I'm gonna go into my voice notes and I'm gonna just make up a thing over it and I'm gonna record it. Let's go. 5, 6. All right, that'll do. That'll do. All right, stop, pause, stop. Yeah, great. So, all right, so we have like a little drum section going on right there. Now, next level, we're gonna add on top of that. I'm gonna try and improvise some sort of a bass line that's gonna go on top of that. And what I'm gonna try and do is see how well I can build like the grooviness of this randomly improvised thing here, while leaving space in the bass line that evokes a sense of like grooviness by focusing on the space between the beats. All right, so pick a key, any key. My live studio audience, what's your favorite key? C. All right, great. So the key of C. That's C major. La la do re mi fa sol la ti do. All right. Maybe we'll start on the one. All right, I'm gonna play back the recording and we're gonna freestyle a bass line. Wish me luck.
Let's go.
Oh, we haven't started yet. Let's go again. Oh man, it was just getting interesting. Let's go again. Let's pull it up. All right. All right, whoa, okay, cool, freestyle, totally off the top of my head. No idea where that came from or where that was going, but maybe I'll turn that into a song or something later on. But anyway, so the point behind that was, notice how like after I pull it up a second time, there was like a doo-doom, 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 right? There's like a little space in between where I intentionally paused and let there be space for maybe another instrument to kind of come in where I wasn't singing the bass line. All laid on top of that 95 BPM like drum pattern. And I don't know, I thought that was pretty groovy. Like, let me know what you think. It could be the makings of like I could hear some other some elongated like chords, let's say like background vocals that just held a note. Let me flesh this out later and like maybe I'll post it. But the idea is that what made that particularly groovy was the pocket, right? As one instrument was playing, it's trying to, my bass line that I was singing was trying to keep up and like sing in between the space left between my beatboxing, which was again dictated by the 95 BPM metronome. If we're adding more instruments on top of that, you'd find that they would want to, like, as I said, play in the space left there, and everybody playing together is sort of creating this sense of togetherness. It feels like it locks into place around the pocket. I don't know. And live, like musicians, if you're listening to this, tell me if you relate to what I'm talking about. It's like, it just feels good. It like comes from an internal, visceral, bodily sense of like, yeah, when you kind of like lean into it and you're starting to bounce and you're starting to feel like the space in between, you know, like when you rock into the groove, like where are you actually rocking into? It's the space in between the beats. My camera's gonna die. I need to put in a new battery. Oh, crap. Right. We're back again. A bit of a learning curve here with the new video component. But anyway, we're getting better every time. So, musicians, right. Tell me if you relate to this. The idea of when all of the music, all of the different instruments and the voices just lock into place around the pocket. It feels right. That's when you know you've struck gold and hit a groovy song. Imagine a triangle, right? And at each point of the triangle is a different instrument. So you might have the bass line, you might have the drums, you might have the guitar, and then you could expand this triangle to be a rectangle or any number, any polygon with multiple sides where each angle, each corner is an instrument, and they're all playing around this pocket. Each of them is bringing their own rhythmic interpretation to the song, right? And they're all co-creating this musical space. And a groovy song is one that successfully locks in locks into place with each voice complementing the other voice in a way that makes it just click. And as you're co-creating this musical space together, the trick is, and the fun part is, being connected to this state of flow where your internal rhythm matches somebody else's internal rhythm. And there's this synergy, there's this energy exchange that happens when my internal pulse matches your internal pulse, matches that other person's internal pulse, and we are all connected around this internal pulse together, and we're all like rocking into this pocket together. And that is where the magic happens, baby. That's where the groove is. That's what makes a song groovy, in my opinion. It doesn't necessarily have to do with exactly what you're playing. It just has to do with that sense of like, is everybody in there like feeling their respective pulses and like really bouncing with it. And that comes from, again, a strong sense of rhythm, a strong sense of musicality and interpretation of your individual groove in relation to somebody else's groove. I don't know, I find this fascinating. As you know, this is a music and mindfulness podcast, right? You might be asking, all right, great, wicked, music, awesome. What does this have to do with mindfulness? How does this relate to the idea of living a more intentional and mindful life in general? So, a lot. So, I want to just throw us back to the very start of this episode. When I asked you to pause and just take 3 deep breaths with me and notice the moment in between the in-breath and the out-breath. I'm going to use that as sort of like a parallel or a metaphor for the pocket of a song, where if you can connect to the present moment so effectively that you don't let the space in between your breaths pass, you can apply that to various aspects of your musical playing and your everyday life. If you're able to be, mindful enough or connected to the present moment enough that you are aware of the transitions between your life, between the activities in your life. Let's say you're doing, if you're in school, you're doing an assignment, maybe you're at work and you're working on a particular project, and then all of a sudden your attention gets pulled over there, and then you have to come back, and maybe you transition to a different part of the day when a meeting starts, or you have to go somewhere else. There's a constant, we live as human beings in a constant state of transition in life. And to be mindful just means being aware of the spaces in between these moments, in between the rhythms of life that pull us in various directions, being able to pause and just be here, be in this moment and be like, appreciate the fact that you are a sentient human being, that you have the ability to notice in the first place, that you are conscious and able to make decisions about what happens next, able to reflect on not just what happens next, but where you are and where you're going. Isn't that what music is all about? You're playing within the context of a song, but you have to be mindful about where you are in the pocket right now, where you are in the groove, where your instrument locks into everybody else's musical space, but also be so attuned to the present moment that you are aware of where you're stepping next, what beat you have to play next, what is the next chord. Does the verse 2 differ from verse 1 in a way that makes me have to bring a little more attention to what I'm about to play, right? Huge in terms of how music and mindfulness are related in this way. If you're able to connect to that sense of being tapped into the in-between spaces in music, in life, it really is the perfect balance between being here, but being so connected to a state of flow that you are anticipating the next beat and that you are actively preparing for what's to come, that leads to a more mindful life and a more well-lived life, I would say. From having put this into practice myself for the past 2 years, I find that it makes my life more joyful because I'm in a state of flow. I'm connected to flow states more often. We've had a whole episode in the past about flow states, and it's going to become a recurring theme on this podcast. But one of my personal life goals now is to find ways to connect to my flow state as much as possible, and just infuse as much joy and like rhythm and groove into my daily life as possible. If you want a more in-depth discussion on that, go check out episode, don't remember, it was in season 2 of this podcast. I'll link it in the description. in terms of my own mental health and my own mental wellness journey, I've found that as somebody who struggles with, I struggle with depression a lot. And what that means on a tangible level is that my mind will default to a state of sluggishness and a state of slowing down and a state of like, I'd rather not. And I don't want to be here and don't want to do this. But when I find I'm connected to this flow state, let's say I'm going to like a live music event and like we're playing, they're playing live reggae music on Thursday nights down the road, and I'm there. I find that being able to sit inside the pocket of a song just makes me start to move. And as I said on my last episode, the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's stagnation. The opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's movement. Stagnation and depression are almost synonymous to me. So in terms of how we can use rhythm and grooviness and music to get people going, to the extent that we can use music to get people moving, I think there's a lot to be said about how we can use this as a mental wellness tactic. If you can get physically moving by dancing, by going running, by going to the gym, or even if it's just like you're just bopping along to music at your desk while you work, I find it does wonders for me. Especially when that song is rhythmic, when it's groovy, and like it really hits the spot. You know what I'm talking about? It has just done wellness for my mental health journey. And lastly, I cannot understate how impactful mindfulness meditation has been in my own mental health and wellness journey. And what that means, again, on a practical level, is carving out 10 minutes a day, sometimes 15, sometimes 20 when I have more time. To just literally sit right here. This is my meditation couch that I've just put the camera in front of. And I set the timer on my phone for on one of my meditation apps to ring a bell every 2 minutes. And I bring my attention, just like we did at the start of this episode, to the sensation of where the air meets my nose, meets my lungs, my chest expands and contracts, and the pause between the breath and we let go of the breath. That cyclical rhythmic pattern. Tapping into that cyclical rhythmic pattern for 10 minutes. Start small. Start with 5 minutes. If you're pressed for time, start with 1 minute. See how many breaths you can count for a 1 minute cycle. And notice how when you do that, you feel more present. You feel more connected to the current moment. You might slow the rate at which your mind is racing. You will notice intrusive thoughts that just pop up. And then they demand your attention. They demand your urgent response. But notice that in that moment, if you're connected to that space in between the breaths, you are in that moment free to decide whether or not to act on that thought. You're no longer a slave to your thoughts. You're no longer a slave to your emotions. Wow, this is sounding like I'm getting preachy, but I'm going to preach, because it has been transformative. In that moment of mindfulness, you realize that you have the ability to choose how to respond to this thought. You have the ability to notice and label the type of emotion that has just surfaced in your mind and notice it as just that. That's just an emotion. I don't need to act on that. I don't need to let it determine how I act or behave or feel in the next moment or the next moment. Because in this moment, as the thoughts arise and notice them, I can just as easily let them go. It's almost as if you're noticing clouds in the sky. You're like, oh, that cloud is gray. And then it goes away. Oh, that cloud looks like a bunny rabbit. Great, happy. And then it disappears, right? That's just the nature of your mind. That's just the nature of consciousness and emotions. And mindfulness has helped me tap into that space more intentionally, to observe, be an observer of my own conscious experience, and then make different decisions, different mental health decisions as to how I navigate that. And I'm not saying that this just makes depression or anxiety just go away forever. Like, nah, yo. Like, let's be real here. I'm trying to keep it real on this podcast. Like, mental health, mental illness is real and so challenging. The last thing I want to do is minimize your subjective lived experience when it comes to the nature of your own mind, right? And what you're going through. But think of this as just another tool on your tool belt that you can use to combat negative thoughts or intrusive thoughts or anxious thoughts by just noticing them for what they are. if you're in a position where you find that your mental health journey has really been struggling, like talk to someone, like seriously talk to someone. It's all very well and good to meditate, but like you can't meditate your problems away necessarily. It can help you, respond differently to your subjective lived experience, but there's nothing like talking to a therapist, somebody who is trained and knowledgeable as to how to listen, coach, guide, and advise. And if it is the case that like medication is necessary, then they can inform you on that. But seriously, let's destigmatize, let's remove the taboo entirely from going to therapy. Everybody should go to therapy. And I'm going on a tangent here, but like, it has been so helpful. It's so helpful to be able to process in real time the thoughts that are going on in here, especially when mindfulness meditation is not enough for you to, go it alone in your own headspace. Find someone you trust, bring them in, and help them to help you to decode what's going on up here, to help walk you through it in a way that is more mindful, and hopefully it brings a little bit more joy and like happiness back to your lived experience. Like, you only have one life, you only get one. You might as well fill it with as much positivity and happiness and music and joy and rhythm and sensation and grooviness and flow state emotions as possible. Because why not? If that's what makes life meaningful to you, then pursue it. Just like chase after it. And that's where I'm at in my own artistic journey right now. I find that the things that make me the most fulfilled and make me feel like I'm connected to this otherworldly state of, expression, right? To be my connection to the flow state and music. And so I'm pursuing that. That's what I'm trying to do in my own artistry, which I would love if you also were here for. Like, we're releasing new stuff soon. But also, that's my intention with this podcast, to be able to channel that energy and start conversations around how we can live more mindfully by living more musically. And I just think there's a whole world to be explored here. So whether you are a musician or a non-musician, maybe you are literally tone deaf, maybe you are literally deaf, there is something here for you in terms of living more mindfully by connecting to rhythm. You actually don't need your ears to experience rhythm because it comes from your body. If you are a human being with a body, you can experience and appreciate the ways rhythm can increase your state of your level of mindfulness and appreciation of just of movement, of happiness, and music in general. So I'm gonna say that's it for today's episode. Let's pause it here. We have a lot more to talk about on future episodes when we actually talk to other musicians, bass players, drummers, beatboxers. So keep it locked. I am so glad that you're here. The song of the week this time is a song called, it's in my I'd Like to Hear This Again playlist. The song of the week this time is called Figures by an artist named Gaida. The song of the week this time is a song called Figures by an artist called Gaida. Go check it out. I find that the rhythm was just irresistible. I don't know, I couldn't help but dancing along to it. I love it. Check it out. Remember to connect with me on the socials. I'm here on Instagram at Be Here Podcast. Reach out to me on my personal Instagram at Brian Royes, BryanRoyes, and also on TikTok, where I'm posting a lot more regularly than before. You can find me on Twitter, where we're chatting up a storm, and also on YouTube, which is probably where you're watching this video. I used to post a lot of covers on here, and I will return to doing some covers in the future. So if you're into that, stay tuned. Please do also share this episode, share this podcast, a previous episode, with a friend or a family member who you think might find this interesting or valuable or relatable. It really helps with the organic growth that we're trying to achieve here. And it's also, more than just growth. It's about starting conversations that I think are valuable and meaningful for people's lives. So if that's you, share away. And remember to follow the podcast on all of your podcast platforms so that you stay up to date for new episodes and new happenings. If you want to join the mindfulness community, just let me know. DM me, send me a message. We are basically doing an email newsletter, which has basically tips, advice, first-person shared experiences on what it means to live a more mindful and more musical life. So if that's you, let me know. Let's do this. So as always, remember to be mindful of where your attention's at, and make it good, make it groovy, and we'll catch you next time on the Be Here Podcast. Let's go. What are you still doing here? Are you expecting post-credit scenes like a Marvel movie? Maybe I will start doing those actually. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, since you're watching it on the video format for the first time, remember to leave a thumbs up and subscribe and ring the bell and all of the usual stuff. Leave a comment. Let me know if you appreciated it, what you thought worked, what you thought didn't work. And yeah, I'm really glad that you're part of the community.